Serious, what was your biggest we need to leave now moment? At a party when I was about 19. I was on the top floor with my friend and he mentioned to me that he and the guy in the corner had been in a pretty nasty fight about a year ago. That guy is giving us some eyes and staring us down. My friend said not to worry, but I did not like the vibe this guy was giving. I saw the guy talk to his friend and send him out of the room. I told my buddy, nope, we are leaving now. Much to his protest, as there was a girl he liked at this party. I practically ran down the stairs, grabbed our other friend by the hood of his sweatshirt and ran to the car. As we are backing out of this long country driveway, I see the guy, his buddy and 4 or 5 more of them run out of the house with baseball bats and they chased us down the driveway. So dang glad we got out of there when we did. About a decade ago, I was driving my Miata with a friend to a track about 4 hours from home. We left after dinner the night before so we could wake up there and get an early start. About an hour from our destination, 11 PM, a crazy summer storm hit. Heavy rain, high wind gusts, lots of debris. I told my buddy that the early 90s windshield wipers couldn't keep up. I couldn't see crap, and I just felt like I was white knuckling the steering wheel. I decided to hit the exit. We'd get some late night food at a Waffle House and wait out the storm. We sat down and I had a TV in sight and I was casually watching. Almost immediately, a weather map came up and showed a tornado pass right over where we would have been a few minutes later had I not exited. In college, there was a big rock cliff at the top of a hill that everybody used to climb. It had lights pointing at it to light it up at night. Some friends and I decided to climb up to the top at night. It was a nice evening but there was a chance of rain. So we get to the top and I see lightning in the distance. I count the time between lightning and thunder. 15 seconds. I tell my friends, hey, that storm is coming our way, and I'm guessing we have 15-20 minutes before it gets here. It took some convincing for them to agree that even though I was being a negative Nancy we would head back down. Getting down took about 15 minutes. Just before we got to the cars, lightning hit the rock and blew out all the lights. My father's story, 1999. 3 adult males entered our family store in July wearing heavy trench coats. They spread out through the store and my father caught a glimpse of a gun under their coats. He called the police and while waiting for a call back, my mother grabbed the children and ran out the back door. Once we got a call back, an employee answered the phone and asked who called the police. The men ran out of the store, went down 2 doors, robbed the laundromat, and killed the clerk. Driving to Disney with hubs and 2 little kids, 4 and 5, stopped at a gas station in Tifton, Gar at about 10 PM. Wandering a little bleary-eyed with the 2 kids looking for the bathroom. Clark looks at me funny and points. While I'm in there I hear she's got 2 babies with her man. Just let them pee and go. I grab both kids and walk straight back to the car with only a small head nod to the clerk. Hubs was done pumping gas and about to go in himself. I yelled for everyone to get in the car. I would explain later. As soon as we pulled out I called 911. The operator told me they were already en route and to vacate the scene. Took my info and wished us a fun trip. Walked into a gas station robbery with 2 little kids, peed and left with no issues. Bad guy wasn't that bad of a guy and let us go. I live in New Orleans, LA, and years ago my brother wanted to adopt a dog from a small rural town about 2-ish hours away from NOLA. It was an easy enough drive, but as we got close to the town, Clinton, LA, I started noticing a ton of police driving around. No sirens, nobody speeding by, but I think I probably saw 15-20 patrol cars in the span of about 10 minutes. We get to the house, meet the foster mom and the dog, who is the sweetest thing in the world. Decide to adopt her and head home about 2 hours later. Everything seems fine. Taileye, the dog, climbs up into the front seat while I'm driving and falls asleep, leaving my brother to sit in the back by himself, which was hilarious. We keep driving and notice that there are even more cops driving around, but still no sirens. They're just everywhere though. As we're leaving Clinton, maybe about 3 miles to the exit or so, I notice this old white sedan come flying up on our rear, flashing their lights, honking, etc. I didn't really think about it, but I figured maybe these people were hurt and needed help or something. It definitely wasn't a cop car. but it was unusual for sure. I started to pull over to the shoulder and they pulled over as well, about 10-15 yards behind us where they stopped. I stopped the car, and when I turned around I looked at my brother. For some reason, as soon as our eyes met, the hair on the back of my neck stood up and I realized that there was something very wrong about this. I still hesitated, wanting to see if somebody needed help, but as soon as the door of the car behind us opened, a voice inside my head said, "Get the frick out of there right this second." I peeled out and sped for the exit, making sure nobody had followed us. We got back to New Orleans safe and sound, but the entire time, I was watching for that car to ensure they didn't follow. I never learned what happened with all of the police cars or the white sedan, but something was really wrong. I should have listened to my gut way sooner. Stopping even temporarily was really dumb of me. I hypothesized that there was a drug raid or something, and the cops were looking for somebody while we were driving through. The white sedan was trying to get us to pull over so they could carjack us and dodge the cops further. I don't know though, and I hope that it wasn't innocent and somebody needed help and I bailed. But I don't think so. I think something freaky was going on. I was 15 at the time. I took about 10 of my little cousins with me to the park. 3 of my older cousins, but still younger than me or the same age, came with me to help. As I approached the park there was a man and 2 other kids there. He came up to me and started talking to me. I tried to give him the hint that I didn't want to talk, but he kept going. I asked him, "Oh, did you bring your kids with you?" He nodded and kept talking. Then asked me weird questions like, "Are you married? Are those your kids? How old are you?" I lied about my name and age and tried to walk away. Then he said, "I like you. Wanna sit with me and talk?" I said I had something important to tell my family first and I'd join him after. I smiled and went up to one of my older cousins and said, "Pretend everything is okay, but we need to leave now." She nodded and I watched as the 2 kids left without the man. So we started walking home again and I made sure he didn't follow or watch where we went. I later found out that he had picked up one of my little cousins and put him down again, and one of my cousins saw, but she froze and didn't say anything to me. Luckily one of us saw him walk into a house and so we called the police. Showed up to a party. Some people were outside fighting. My GF at the time and I decided to leave. Not long after that some guys that were a part of the first fight came back with more and a shooting occurred. I, 19F, was on a Greek island last May with my cousin, 22F, as a part of a trip. We like to go on aimless walks out of the towns we stayed in to see what was around. On our way back from one of these walks we were on a long narrow road that dropped off on each side to beaches. A small green car passes by us in the same direction we're walking and stops 50-100 yards in front of us, just sitting on the road. We say maybe they are just taking in the view. We continue to walk and when we finally get to the car, the passenger, our side, window is down and the man is staring at us through the mirror. As soon as we pass, the car pulls forward past us again. Immediately after, the green car drives past us again. Large truck drives past again in the same direction and pulls alongside the green car. They both stop for a moment and are clearly talking to each other. The green car speeds off. The black truck drives forward a bit more and then stops on the same side of the road again. Keep in mind we're on a narrow road. We can't turn around because town is the other way. Behind us is just beaches and a couple houses. The black truck is stopped on our side of the road. As we get closer, the driver opens the front and back door to the cab, but does nothing else. Just stands there outside of the truck, mostly looking back towards us. We decide that this is way too sketchy. Both cars were clearly keeping an eye on us and watching and communicating. When we get closer to the truck we nope off of the road and drop into the beach. We get as far away from the road as the beach will allow us and start speed walking. The man from the truck crosses the road and watches us with binoculars from the side of the beach. We ran until we caught up with another couple and followed them back into town. I saw the same green car drive back past us multiple times as we ran parallel to the road down the beach. We made it back to our hotel apartment thing safely and locked and tied up our doors to the balcony and hall. In a nutshell, potentially almost experience taken on a gap year trip in Greece. I was at a club and a guy pulled up and parked next to us as we were getting out to head in. The guy then proceeded to reach in the back of his SUV and pull out a shotgun. He looked over at us and told us it's finna go down. We got back in our vehicle and noped out. Homeboy did you a solid LOL. Woodstock 99. Felt the energy of the grossly overpacked crowd, the building rage, and looked my friends and said we need to go. They stayed. I left. Shortly after fires and riots started and my friends lost everything they had with them. Tents, clothes, food, everything. When you have 300k people shoulder to shoulder in 104-degree humidity and charge $4 for a bottle of water and have half as many bathrooms as needed, you're gonna have a bad time. I was there. I'm wondering where you found water as cheap as $4 a bottle. Visiting Kowloon in Hong Kong. I ended up walking all day until my feet were killing me. It got dark outside and I was tired, so I decided to drop by a decent looking bar for a drink and a moment to rest my feet. It was all empty except a group of serious looking local men in suits. They kept leering at me the whole time. The most awkward beer I ever had. None of them said a word, but I got the message. You're not supposed to be here. Guaylo. Girls camp. My last year, me and a small group of girls wanted to climb to the top of this big hill that has a beautiful lookout above the trees and clear view of the sky. It was a new moon and zero light pollution. We grabbed our flashlights and got on the trail. About 3/4 of the way up, the two girls leading us stopped dead in their tracks at the same time. One whispered to the other, "Do you feel that?" I was right behind them and heard what they said. I looked up and around. I didn't see anything, but something in the air made the hair on my neck stand on end. It was just too quiet. I started to feel very vulnerable and scared. One of the girls in front turned and said, "We need to go back. Don't run." One girl asked why not run and they said, "So you don't trip." Valid reason, but I don't believe it was the real reason she said it. That girl who told you not to run grew up in mountain lion territory. That's my guess on what it was. We have very primal instincts when it comes to big predators like that, and this sounds exactly like it. I was home from college for a holiday weekend. A college friend was from the same town and he was home too. We were looking for something to do on Saturday night and heard that an old friend was having a party, so we decided to stop by. This old friend had developed new friends while we were gone. Neo-Nazi skinheads. They had visible tattoos of Nazi symbols. Did I mention that the friend I brought is definitely not a white guy? We got the heck out of there pretty quick. In China, on a school trip, wandering around night market stalls of fried bugs and bull testicles, in a group of 10 or so high school age kids, a 50-60-ish YO, Chinese man engages us in conversation, claiming to be the curator of a local art gallery. "Do we want to check out some paintings?" Sure. We were bored and had lost our appetite pretty quickly anyhow. Well, we get to the gallery, which was a semi-rundown 5 by 5 meters building. The Chinese man talks to us from the doorway, inviting us in to see the paintings which are downstairs. The building is in the middle of a large paved courtyard, right next to a popular tourist destination. It's safe, right? Peering through the doorway, no artwork or obvious function to the building is visible. An entrance lamp is broken with its glass scattered over the doorway, and inside shoddy steps led to a dank unlit basement. One of us interrupts Chinese man's sweet talking. "Come down. See painting." To grill him on the broken glass. "Don't worry. Many paintings. Beautiful, no. Tell me why there's broken glass." At this point we're all exchanging glances, when I get the urge to break our collective stupor by yelling "Cheese ITTTT" as a group we turn tail into a sprint, covering 100 yards or so before we slow down to laugh and crack jokes about kidnapping and organ black markets. Glad it was the best memory from my trip and not the last one. When me, 11, and my mom were feeding some cows we had bought with some other people. There was supposed to be 8, but when we walked into the field they were being hurled at, there was only 7. Suddenly a massive black heifer emerged from some bushes about 50 meters away from us and just started bolting towards us, swinging its head wildly. I literally said to my mom, "I think we need to leave now," but the bewildered bovine would easily have sprinted us down and trampled us to death. So my mom stepped towards it, spreading her arms out wide and screaming bloody murder. It sounded like somebody had kicked a bull in the nuts, and it luckily was intimidating enough to make the cow stop and lumber away. Late afternoon in the summer, I'm waiting in the bus station near my house. Most businesses are closed, not a lot of cars in the street. Guy passes in front of me. He passes again 2 minutes later watching me suspiciously. Alarms start to go in my head screaming to me that I need to leave and get the frick off here. But I ignore it since the bus will come in 10 minutes. Third time he passes he charges to me, pushing me to the wall with his dong out. I freeze for some seconds then start punching and kicking him. I manage to get away and the rest is history. Yeah, trust your guts, guys. I lived really close to my school when I was a kid and there was this big thing for us to play in, so naturally I always went to play there in the evening before supper or just any time I was bored. It was surrounded by a lot of houses and a busy street, so it was a safe enough place. One day I went with a friend of mine who was about a year older than me. We had 2 schoolyards, one for the older kids and one for the younger ones. The big plastic thing was in the younger kids' yard. There was a small corridor that let us go between yards though, and as we're playing I see this guy wearing a hoodie with the hood up start slowly walking into the yard we were in. We stayed there for about 20 minutes with the guy, but I felt that something was very off. I was too young to really know what to do and imagined he would leave at some point. The problem was that he was slowly walking around a wall blocking all the houses from seeing him and was much closer to the exit than we were. I will always remember watching him nonchalantly kick a pizza box around as he made his way closer to us. As I turned to my friend to tell her that we had to leave because I felt like something really bad was going to happen, I heard my father bellow my name and saw him running the length of the schoolyard towards the door with my neighbor in tow. My father was in his 60s and took his car everywhere, and that's the first time I ever saw him really run. The guy bolted and my father trailed after him. My neighbor brought us to my friend's house as they all knew each other and we stayed there until pretty late. I remember her mother trying to explain to us what a child predator was. I was 9 at most and I just knew that I was terrified. My father, my neighbor and my friend's father both tried to find the guy. I can imagine how scared he must have been. My father was very tall and intimidating and so were my neighbors. The scariest part of this is that I still have no idea how my father had known, as the guy wasn't visible and I lived a few houses down from where we were. I'm sure that he saved mine and my friends' lives that day. My friends and I stopped at a 7-Eleven around midnight in a sketchy neighborhood. We'd taken a wrong turn and were trying to find our way back to the highway. 2 police officers were getting coffee and donuts. A group of local youth came in, kind of roughly messing with each other. The police officers looked at them, looked at us, looked at each other and power walked out of the store. My friends and I decided not to complete our snack food purchases and made to leave, and then one of the youths yelled to his friends that we'd called him a racial epithet, when we hadn't even spoken to them. I'm glad my car started on the first try, and glad no one was coming the other way as I ran a couple stop signs. So I was waiting at the train station to pick up a friend of mine. I was early so I decided to stand in the sun right outside of the station. A guy with a bicycle walked up to me asking in broken English if I knew how late the train would arrive. After I answered the question he stayed around and started talking to me. Now I know that's not weird at all, but the things he asked and the way he acted and looked just gave me a creepy vibe. Eventually he asked if I would walk with him while he dropped his bicycle off. I didn't want to because the place to store bicycles at this station is very secluded, and to be honest I didn't want to be alone with this guy. So I noped out and walked into the station. He started yelling at me, calling me names, but at that moment the train came in and it got very busy, so he left. A few months later I read this article in the local paper about a girl being uphead at the station. They had put a drawing of a guy next to the article as he was not yet caught. It was the same guy. To this day I'm very happy I didn't go with him. I was hiking with 2 friends and we were crossing through some big farms. One of the fenced off areas had a herd of cows in it. They had like 20 calves and 150 cows. As we were walking through, they slowly ganged up on us from behind and literally encircled us, facing inwards while standing next to each other. I think they surrounded us by like 300 degrees before we realized what was happening and freaking ran like heck the last 50 meters to the edge of the fenced area. I think the opening between the 2 ends of the open circle was like 20 meters and they were like 20 meters away from us. That was pretty insane tbh. I will never forget it. I learned to differentiate between the behavior of one creature opposed to a herd. It blew my mind how they all worked together in silence. I have never experienced fear physically like in that moment. When we hopped the fence they followed us to the edge. There was one black bull in particular who didn't seem to like we got away. I always assumed he was the leader. When I was about 16, I went to visit my grandmother at her place. The smell of natural gas was intense, even though Nana didn't seem to notice it much. She was groggy, sort of half asleep, not her usual responsive self. So I made her get out of the house at once and opened the windows and doors. I called Dad and he reported it to the gas company, who sent inspectors right away. They shut off the gas valve in the street immediately and sent a repair crew to fix a leaking joint in the gas supply pipe. The inspector said that if I hadn't acted then and there, the probability was great that there would soon have been an explosion. I was in a school play when I was about 12/13. This was one of the rare opportunities I got to be in the school after it had closed, so I took the chance to have a walk around the empty rooms while the other kids and teachers were all in the main hall. It was about 7 p.m. At the back of the school was a bunch of temporary classrooms all in darkness, so I wandered in. The temp classrooms had a storeroom that joined the classrooms together. It was only small with nothing but the usual classroom equipment in. From out of the storeroom came my English teacher. Now, the class and storeroom are in darkness. I know I shouldn't be there and I'm pretty sure he shouldn't either. Strangely, he doesn't act at all surprised and in fact beckons me over and tells me he has something he wants to show me in the storeroom. It all just felt wrong. As soon as he disappeared back into the storeroom, I ran as fast as my legs could go. My friend and I, both females, met up our first time back home from college. It was a surprisingly nice day outside in the middle of winter, so we decided to get lunch and eat outside. We found a park that had no one there and were sitting at a picnic table catching up when I see a scruffy looking guy in a large work van with no rear windows pull into the parking lot. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to him at first, but I noticed he was moving around the outside of the van for a bit and he kept looking our way. He finally walked down the sidewalk toward us and passed by our picnic table and walked around the back side of the restroom building to look down the hill on the other side of it, very obviously casing out the place. He walked back to his van and me and my friend were discussing what we were going to do while I watched him open up the back of the van and start digging around it. He made a call on his cell phone and a few minutes later another male pulled up in a different car. He got out and started talking to the first guy, who not very discreetly pointed our direction. They immediately started walking toward us and my friend and I scooped what was left of lunch and fast walked out of the place while keeping an eye on them. One of the times in my life I could literally feel the hair on the back of my neck standing on end. It could have been nothing, but even now I feel pretty certain that they had something planned and I am glad we left. Met this cute girl at a party, spent the whole night dancing and flirting. Offered to drive her home and she agreed. We were making out in the car in front of her house when another car pulls up with their headlights beaming at us. I ask if that's a neighbor and if we're blocking their driveway. She replies, "No, that's my husband." Husband's car door opens and I noped the frick out of there. Dropped her straight back at the party and never saw her again. Her excuse was that they were separated and he shouldn't have a problem with it. I sure wasn't sticking around to find out. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.